Welcome everybody, this is Paul Quinton here from the Alignment Modality, and I have a very special guest, Dr Enolia Foti, today. And we're going to talk about consciousness and everything that expands from our heart centers today. We're going to have a really good conversation. I'm going to introduce her in a minute. And this is obviously my first interview, and I'm going to be doing a series of these now. So bear with me as we go through this process. And it's really nice to sort of change my game around with the podcasting. As you know, I normally do speak a lot of channel messages. So it's really nice to bring other professionals and people in my field that I'm congruent with and align with, and have a wonderful message. So I'm going to introduce Enolia now. Hello, Enolia. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Really lovely to see you. So I'm just going to read off a little bit about Enolia. So Enolia is a respected grandmother, elder, and doctor in energy medicine, practicing in Africa. With decades of experience, she uses a holistic approach to guide individuals towards balanced health, integrating ancient traditions into modern wellness practices. Enolia offers classes and retreats on healing, self-mastery, dynamic meditations, and conscious mindset. Internationally recognized as a thought leader, Enolia is an award-winning keynote speaker, author, global influencer, and coach. She is dedicated to youth advocacy, women's empowerment, and contributing to Africa, holding an honorary doctorate in international peace ambassadorship from the United Nations and an ambassadorship for human rights from the World Assembly for Peace. Well, that's quite a lot there, Enolia, and what a fantastic resume.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I really want to find out about your work in Africa and how you got there, what drew you to this process. And I know we've spoken a bit about your story, but for the guests it'd be really lovely to find out a bit more about how it all started for you.
So wow, that's quite a story, and I'll try to give you the condensed version, but I didn't start out people thought, I did the American dream where everybody says you go to school, you get married, you have kids, you work in a job that you like. And so that's what I did. I designed computer networks for a Fortune 500 company for years. And it was that dissatisfaction in that realm that I basically said, there's got to be another way to live. And it was shortly thereafter I met my first Indigenous grandmother. And in meeting my first Indigenous grandmother, that friendship developed into a beautiful, beautiful relationship. And in the end, she ended up initiating me as a grandmother, being my first grandmother. So she initiated me into that eldership. But when I met her, Grandmother Isabel, she spoke with me, taught me, worked with me, and then she initiated this string of grandmothers and grandfathers. And when I say grandmothers and grandfathers, I don't mean relatives. I mean that is an affectionate term for medicine men and medicine women. And these medicine men and medicine women started seeing something in me and would engage me and speak with me. I've studied with my original grandmother, Isabel, is Ojibwe, and that's Northern Canada. But then I worked with the Lakota. I worked with the Yaqui Indians in Arizona. I worked with the Hopi. I worked with the Apache. I worked with the Waiataha in New Zealand. And then it went to the Mayans in Mexico and Toltecs also. And then here I am in Africa, and I've worked with the Sangomas in South Africa, and I've been initiated the Ovumbundu. And there's the Mapuche and the Quiros in South America. I mean, it just opened up this world that I didn't expect. So really what it is that when spirit calls you and you surrender to it, I surrendered to it because I never lived my life that way, Paul. You know, I lived it like everybody else, you know, doing the dream that we perceive that we want, not happy in that dream, and then letting go, finding another way to live, and then doing the dream I was called to do. And really that's it. That's what happened. And so people will say, like, what modality are you? And I guess you can call me the modality of the world. Okay. Because I really embody and embrace all these cultures had influence, and all these leaders had influence and contribute to who I am and what I do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, you know, that word surrender is so apt for right now, because we're still, as you know, consciousness is redefining itself, and people are still stuck in that mental male energy, strive, struggle, get ahead. You know, society programs me that way, so I need to follow that milestone. You know, and and the surrender process, that's the hardest thing, and trusting and being in the moment. And I think that, you know, you live that experience, especially moving all around the world and doing it. You know, and there's a lot of people that won't give up that financial security or that comfort. So, you know, it's an amazing thing. And yeah, and I want to say that, yes, how do you define yourself? When people ask you what I do now, I don't have a word for it. So I actually say transformational specialist now, because it is sort of a coach, mentor, because you don't want to call yourself a healer, because there's too much redundancy around that word now. And it's also, you know, everything's changing and the dialogue's changing. And it is, yeah, and we're just a modality of consciousness, aren't we? So it is very hard, because even when I was designing mine, I thought, what do I call it? And Spirit said, choose 3 things about your journey, and the word alignment came from it. And then hence that's how it was birthed. And so my book was called that. But you have to draw from your own experiences. And I think, you know, you're a great advocate for that. So I think it's been an amazing journey, hasn't it? So what's made you settle in Africa now? Is there a deep yearning to be there? Is it something that's is the grounding for you for this work now? Or do you see yourself going elsewhere?
Yeah, it's actually a dream come true. You know, there's a few things that are here that had me settle into Africa. One is that when I was in South America, in Chile, I met a medicine woman, the Mapuche medicine woman, Luz Clara, and I was there with medicine woman Marcela Lobos. And really, Luz Clara gave me a message, you know, and this is me in my journey, just embarking on what my studies were, and still a student and learning and kind of finding my way. And she actually came to me and she's like, I have a message for you. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, your medicine is strong, but you need to go home. And I'm like, oh, what? Go home to New York? And she's like, no, you need to go home to Africa. And I'm like, Africa? I've never been to Africa. I wouldn't even know where to begin with Africa. All I knew was what I saw on television, the stories that I heard. I didn't know. And she was like, I was like, okay, great. I'll go home, and I'll go home with my ex-husband now, but at the time I'll go with my husband. She's like, no, you need to go on a pilgrimage. And I said, okay, well then I'll go on a pilgrimage with my girlfriend. She's like, no, you need to go alone. I'm like, how am I going to go alone? And I don't know anything about these countries except what I hear, and that women shouldn't travel alone, you know? And so it's funny because I was in a retreat when that happened. And so we did this vision quest, and we went to the top of the Andes, and we separated out, you know, the women that were on this vision quest. And we all found our own spot, and we did our rituals of what we wanted to do. And we had a talk with God on that mountaintop. And I remember saying to God, if you provide a way for me to be able to get to Africa, I will go. But you have to provide a way. I don't know how to get there. And so Marcella, medicine woman Marcella, drums us in to say, signaling us from wherever we are scattered on the top of the mountain, it's time to come in. And I come in right away because I had finished everything that I needed to do, while other people were like trickling in very, very slowly. And I sat within earshot of Marcella talking to this woman. And she's like, oh, my friend Deva is asking me to go to Africa, but I don't feel called to go to Africa. Lorraine, do you want to go? Because she was talking to Lorraine, and Lorraine's like, no, I don't want to go. From a third world country, I don't want to go to Africa. That's like visiting home. But I know Enolia wants to go. And I turned around and I was like, I was in shock, because I had 5 minutes beforehand said, okay, Spirit, okay, God, if you show me a way, I will go. And she turns around, Marcella turns around and says to me, Enolia, do you want to go in my place? to Africa. My friend Dava is asking me, and you can take my place. And I was like, yeah, I'll go. If if everything works out, I'll go. So she ended up connecting me. That ended up being Deva Premal, by the way. She's a famous spiritual Sanskrit singer.
Oh, okay.
I went with her small group. It was a small, intimate group, but it was like being on my own because I was with like-minded people, very spiritual, but I could have my own space, my own place. And that gathering was a 100-mile walk across the East and West Savo Park to Kenya.
Wow. Okay.
We walked the land.
Nice. That's good. You have to pick up the vibration. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Nature, everything. And it was a pilgrimage. I was able to have that quiet time because we walked in silence, have that alone time because I could just go off on myself. I didn't feel an obligation to talk and communicate with, like having to keep somebody company because I just met them all. It was an intimate group of just 7 of us. And we were led by the Maasai across the East and West Sava Parks in Kenya. And I got to commune with nature. I was in the motherland, and that's how I stepped foot in the motherland, and that's how I fulfilled what I was asked to do.
What a fantastic journey. And here you are now. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and how has your work evolved from that? And tell us a bit about how you work with your clients and a bit about your teaching platform and, how you sort of have now defined consciousness. Because a lot of people, like we say, all roads lead to Rome, and we all have our way of articulating our unique marriage and union with spirit. So how do you spearhead that work and define consciousness for yourself now and your students and clients?
So as I said before that, I would meet these medicine men or medicine women, and I would get taught. And as I was teaching, or as I was getting taught, I would embody what I was taught. And then I would hold retreats. When I decided to leave corporate, I left corporate, and I picked up and I moved from New York to California. And I lived in Santa Monica. And it was there where I started my business. And when I started my business, it was called Infinite Possibilities Journey to Empowerment. Right. And what I did is I called like 10, 12 of my friends, and I was like, host me for a spiritual journey, host me for drum making, host me for empowerment. And so I got 10 friends to just like host me in their prospective states. And that ended up being 22 states and 4 countries later by word of mouth after I started.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was totally unexpected. And that's how it started. So in between that, I was actually going to retreats, doing my work. And then in turn, I was teaching. And that's how it started.
Fantastic. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, and I think you've got, like you said, you've got to follow the pilgrimage. And I know a few people that just have to move around the world, and that's it. You have to collect energies from different countries, and I think it's amazing. And even when I lived in Australia for 15 years, and I know that their Aboriginal energy assisted me in my work. And you can feel the vibration there, and I've gone to different places around the world, and you can actually, I've picked something up from here, even though you're on holiday. So it's an amazing, the vibrations that you pick up and how that all comes in as a collective. So that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And sorry, excuse me. So, as you're working now, what do you find? Because a lot of people are obviously going through this struggle. There's chaos on the planet. I talk to people about, disease and illness, why it's manifesting, the ancestral. I do a lot of ancestral work, and I'm sure you do in your tribal energy as well. So maybe just talk a little bit about how you work with the ancestors, because collectively it's a huge amount. And I'm seeing in the last year, so many more ancestral energies around my clients trying to push through. And the other thing for people is, how do you define the shadow self? Now, I talk about that a lot, but I'd like to hear your voice on the ancestral and maybe the shadow, because they're the two things that I know that spirit are very conscious of at the moment, getting human beings to awaken to through my channeling. So I'd like to see how you feel about that and what you can say on that.
So in terms of the energy work, what I really do is how I work with the ancestors. We know that we have the ancestors all around us.
Yes.
And I love engaging the ancestors, and I love calling upon the ancestors. But many of us don't realize that we don't necessarily have to take on our ancestors' burdens.
No.
Okay, so how I work with the ancestors, or how I work with an individual with the ancestors, is I really am able to step back and take a look at that individual, and I can see some of the issues that might be surrounding, or some of the pains that might be surrounding, or some of the things that are generational. And when it's generational, it's being brought in from the ancestors because somebody in your lineage did X. And so if they did X, like if my great-great-grandfather has headaches and my grandfather has headaches and my father has headaches, I'm expecting to get headaches. But we don't have to take on the burdens of their headaches. So we need to go back to that original point and find out what took place for that ancestor and help them move that energy and help them go to the light with that energy of that pain or that trauma or the harm that was done to them or the harm that they might have caused that they're paying for. And so working with the ancestors, we can actually work with our ancestors and clear our lineage. And we can help our lineage let go of the pain and the trauma that they had gone through, so that they're not passing it down from generation to generation to generation. And we can embrace our ancestors' gifts. All of our ancestors' gifts are there, and they're there for us, within us, because we come from them. But we don't necessarily have to take on their burdens. Not the way that it's passed down when it's physical, or the way that it's passed down energetically, thinking that we have to take it all on. And that we have no choice. We always have a choice in terms of how we engage them and how we work with them. And so with that, that's how I love to work with the energies of the ancestors, calling upon them, asking them to assist me, letting them know that they can go and receive the light and forgiveness and in what they did, so that they can actually have a freeing moment from how they showed up here in the human circumstance. And so with that, the other piece of this is that you asked me a two-part question, so I'm going to go to the next.
That's all. Take time.
How I work with clients with energy, I believe you asked me. Is that correct?
Like the shadow self, because that's the main thing that we're in denial of the shadow, and until we create that oscillation and get that moving, it's people going to stay unilateral, stuck in the old ways, which it sort of ties into the ancestral, and it also ties into the genetic thread as well. So.
Right. And I'm going to put you on hold for a second. I hope you're editing this, because I have to get them to turn this truck off. I'm getting such an echo of, are you hearing it?
No.
You're not hearing? Okay, I won't. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. So what it is that, first of all, you have to go back to what you subscribe to. And this is what I subscribe to, that the darkness is born of the light.
Yes.
The darkness is born of the light. And if the darkness is born of the light, I'm not working with it any differently than I would work with anything, right? So what we have to do is we have to breathe consciousness into it. We have to be aware of our shadow side. We need to face our shadow side. And when we face our shadow side, we have that opportunity to embrace that of which we are in its totality. And as we embrace who we are in our totality, we breathe light into it, right? So if I can accept the fact that I have this pain or this hurt and everything else, and that it's impacting how I move and navigate through life, and that I know that I want my life to change, then I can face that and let that pain go. And I can go to its origin or its original point. And I can be conscious of the fact that it's impacting me in a certain way in my life, and that I need that to shift or to change. And instead of embracing the shadow such that it guides me, painted with the pain as the veil. I lift up that veil and I move that veil so that I can see what it looks like without that pain. And I surrender the pain to spirit. What I do is I facilitate and I help people surrender that pain, surrender that which is holding them back, that they need to face, that is hindering their navigation through life, through being a better person, through having a happier life, by working with it in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much debilitation around facing emotions and feeling that they're debilitating. And the thing is that, when you have an experience, yes, you create a belief system, you have an emotional reaction, and so they are connected. And so when people go into their emotions, and I find it's very hard for a lot of people, is really getting them to understand that one serves the other, and the mind is going to attach to that and create a scenario. And I know when I was doing all my shadow work, I'd feel things and I think, my God, my life's over, that's it, my career's gone, and your mind creates all of this this jargon.
It creates a story. It creates the stories, and we dwell in those stories, and we make those stories our truths, and they're not our truths. They're not what we stand in. And so we have to navigate and push the story back, navigate past the story, or exit out of the story and step back and be more of the observer, to understand that we're stuck in this story. And again, you have to be conscious of that, right?
Yeah. And have you got any wisdom you can talk about? Because a lot of people are stuck in their story. Is there more you could say on that? If not, no problem, we can move on to something else. But I just feel that that's a real issue for people. It always has been, but because the energy on the planet's changing now, they're being forced to deal with this. Like I say to everyone, every soul on the planet is coming to the human self and saying, hello, it's time for inner work.
Yes, what I would basically say is that what it is when we're stuck in the story is that we are creating a story of our own making. And when we create a story of our own making, we're doing one of two things, right? It's akin to like watching a movie. Are you the main character in the movie and you're reacting at every point? Or are you the observer of the movie and you're going, oh, I can watch this unveil, I can watch that unveil. And then, then you see the story unveil in front of you. But most of us, we're in the movie and we're reacting at every point. And what you have to do is you have to recognize that right off the bat, that you're in the story. And then when you decide to observe the story, then you exit out of the story. You just become aware of how it's unveiling, aware of how the relationships or the circumstances is unveiling. And instead of reacting at every moment, you actually see what's taking place. And then when you feel like you have all of the information, then you can enter back into the story, do or say whatever you need to do and say, and then exit back out of it. But what happens is that in silence, we create a story, or we're so wrapped up in emotions that we're in the story. And I'll caveat that, because when I talk about silence, like if I were to say, hey, Paul, give me a call on Tuesday and we'll follow up on X, Y, and Z. And then Tuesday comes and goes and I don't hear from you. And then Wednesday comes and goes and Thursday comes and goes and Friday comes and goes. And then I start creating the story. Well, why hasn't Paul called? He must not like me. Maybe he's not interested in my work. Maybe he's had it with me. Maybe he went with somebody else and just totally disrespect. We create stories instead of just saying, you know what, Paul hasn't called, and when something is, aligns, he'll give me a call back and let me know what's going on. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't create the story. I wait for the information to come.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good point.
And then the other side of that, of the story, is that we're so animated in the story of our own making. Like, and I'll take the same example. Paul doesn't call me. Well, Paul must not like me. He doesn't like me at all. He's not going to like my work. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. He's not going to want my work. And then you finally call and I go, how could you just disrespect me like that? How could you not want my work? You didn't call. You left me out here in the big, and I react based on the fact that I've created the story in my head, and I don't even give you a chance. I'm already reacting based on the story I created. And then I take myself deeper in the rabbit hole because you're going to respond. You're going, what the hell are you talking about? What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Guess what? My car broke down. It took me a couple of days to get back on my feet. I didn't talk to anybody. Something simple, but we create stories.
And that's a really good definition and understanding. And it's great. It is true, isn't it? You've just got to be present, because when we're thinking, Spirit talks a lot about this with me, and how you create magnetic charge around the body when you're constantly thinking negative or the same thing. It's the same as positive thoughts you're going to manifest. Imagination is our gift into the subconscious and the universal directive. And I feel that's true. And I think just getting people to break that mental appendage is very, very hard, and it's a big thing that everyone struggles with. But I think that's really good advice. It's like, I don't hear anything, stay neutral, stay out of it. And then also, because you're not giving your emotional energy away, exactly. And this is where attachments come in, and where we know in our field there's astral entities and other entities that attach to people through fear, through anger, through emotional pain, etc. And it's also about understanding that you have to be free in yourself to be aligned with just being okay with in the moment. And I think this is like really, really hard. It's getting people just to live in the present moment. And I think you said, your journey of 100 miles walking across the African floor, you have to. There's a DNA shift in that, and just picking up the energies of the ground, it brings you into that alignment, that peace, and you have to let go, don't you? There's no Starbucks, there's no supermarket. Absolutely,
total surrender. And that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to surrender. We want to hold on to our pain. We want to hold on to our judgments. We want to give our power away. We want to hold on to the story. We just want to keep the pain to ourselves because we're not worthy enough. We're not valued enough. We're not deserving enough. We want to play the martyr because human-wise, that's what we've been taught to do. Oh, I have to put everybody first. I'm not worthy enough to be on equal standing with even my own family. Like many women will make themselves a martyr and sacrifice. You'll hear mothers sacrifice. They sacrifice for this, sacrifice for that, to make sure that everybody else is taken care of instead of themselves, instead of just being on equal footing. We are all worthy. We're all worthy. We all deserve to be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish. We all deserve to be able to hold our dreams. And to go after our dreams. Being conscious. The first step is really just about being conscious about how we think, how we react, how we walk and navigate the story, how we give power away. I mean, these are all fundamentals, and these are all within us. They're not external to us. And so, like, when I coach, when I work with people, this is exactly what I work with. And, that is the first step. It's being conscious of who you are before you can look at how anybody else is. It's with you. Absolutely. And those things you just said, then you can actually do that in the present moment. You actually have that choice. You can decide not to play in the story, not to overthink, just to be. And it's very, very simple. But again, we've convoluted everything, and then this is the problem with human consciousness at the moment. We've created all of this intricacy when it doesn't need to be, and we have to really strip it back and just understand the simplicity of it. And I think that's navigating that simplicity is hard for a lot of people. But once you get, I want to highlight that what you're saying is so powerful, right? Because in order to shift our lives, all we have to do is look inward. And make a different decision. Really, if you think about it, for every person who has transformed their life, who is walking a conscious life, is that they recognize that everything they need is within them, and they made different decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of staying in the pattern, staying in the repetition, staying in the triggers, staying in the stories.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely, absolutely, and it's the thing is, it's so terrifying for people, and and getting them out of that fear-based consciousness. So, how would you? Obviously, I work a lot with a lot of the feminine channelings coming through. I've spoke to spirit. We know that the feminine's rebirthing itself. How do you articulate that, and how do you work with that feminine energy now? It's coming back, because the best thing when they gave me the first thing was. And I understood the feminine, the receptive. And another thing they said is like, the spiritual warrior stands still and draws everything to them. They don't go out searching, just magnetize it. And this is about being feminine, and they also said that when the raw feminine energy is unleashed, there's no masculine energy that's going to get in its way, and this is a cosmic joke that, the feminine holds tremendous power. And it brings that fastness, the intuition, the unconditional love. And I'm just wondering how that's been coming through with your channelings, with your work. Are people talking about it over in Africa? Is that something that is a dialogue between the medicine? Because I know the Great Mother is part of the that type of work as well. Because I have a few people that I feel work with ancestral and what's the word I'm looking for? Shamanic.
Okay. It shows up in a lot of different ways. So, my work here in Africa has really been based on having the conversation, because we in North America, in the Western way, we have conversations that others here don't have.
Exactly.
We're much more open. People here don't talk about how their feelings, like I feel this way, I'm intuiting this. Those words are very foreign to them. So being able to hold space to have a dialogue that isn't used to being articulated is the first serious step. The second thing is that they're very, very spiritually inclined, which is that if you come in and you approach being an energetic healer or whatnot, their first thing is you make sure that they are very much aware that you work in the light, because there's some very, very and I guess the basic way is there are energy beings here that work and make the darkness their first and foremost.
Yes.
And only work in the shadow, and it has to be very clear that you work in the light. So I say that because we can get labeled and then it's all over. That's it,
Yeah.
So expressing that, I mean, they're just getting familiar with some of the modalities like Reiki and just energetic hands and things like that. But really, it's for me, it's through my language of light. It's through my soul. It's through how I hold space. It's through how I have the conversation to open their hearts, to understand that when we have a heart-to-heart connection, they can feel that I'm trustworthy.
Yes.
They can feel from the inside out of their own knowing that, okay, this is a person that I could work with, I can trust, and then I'm open to what she brings to the table. And it starts there. It starts there, here. So a lot of times what will happen is I'll work with a group, and then from the group will come individuals, and from the individuals will come the trust, and then from the trust will come the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, isn't it? It's like almost like we have to get out of that sort of westernized, you need to advertise and sell, and you do these long videos. And that felt that anyway. And even now when I advertise my alignment modality, I write down, I said, do not enroll unless you feel it. And I say, you really need to tune into this. Don't do this from your head, because I don't want you to come if you're coming from your head. I want you to come because you're meant to be there. And obviously everything just flows. And I think that's so important for therapists now, is everything's changing. And as Spirit said, you've got to be authentic of your own experience. So you have to walk the path. Otherwise, how can you help another? Because everything's a mirror, right? So lots of times, and especially in the ancient ways, the ancient days, in the ancient temples, you would just turn up, and the healer, because their vibrational frequency was aligned to the directive at the time, you just stand next to each other, you wouldn't speak, and the cells would do the work, and the activation would happen immediately. And I feel that this is really important for people that are listening and people that are drawn to us, particular our type of modality, that they understand that what they're being drawn to is something that's deeper than the mind, that it's and I think holding the space energetically and being able to transform, because that's the whole idea, right? So if we've worked ourselves, we've got all the downloads, we've got the information, then just by being in the same room, people are activated. And I think that's where the power of speech comes from as well, and just being able to be aligned with that.
Yeah, and I think that what you're doing is you're talking all about the different frequencies that we're at.
Yeah.
Because, and I say frequency because we're energetic beings and we're in this physical container. So you have this high, beautiful frequency. I have this beautiful frequency. They have this frequency. And if they resonate with our frequency, they're drawn to us.
Yeah.
And then if they resonate with our frequency and they're drawn to us, then they're also drawn to the way that we utilize that frequency, no matter what modality it comes through. Yeah. And if it comes through our channeling, if it comes through our language of light, if it comes through the way that we work and call in the energy in order to work with it, if it comes through the high frequency words that we're saying, the power of our words, or whatever that particular aspect is, then that's how it comes, and they're drawn to us from it. And so this is why we're constantly telling people or asking people, how do you feel? Because the frequency resonates within you. You get chills when you're talking to a certain particular person. You just go, oh my gosh, there's just something drawing me so strongly to this person. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it. I need to be in that person's industry.
Yeah. It's like when they come on the workshop and say, why are you here? Say, I was just meant to be here. That's the best answer you can give.
Yes.
Not, well, because so-and-so and this and that. No. Because I just know I was meant to be here. I'm like that as well. I never question. I roll on things. I go to things. I don't even know why I'm there sometimes. I'm just meant to be there. And I think it's a beautiful space to be in, because there's so many people that I know that are following false leaders, or there's that propaganda talk, and you're getting caught up logically with the narrative that they're being sold. And I feel that this is a real problem on the planet at the moment. And even spirits speak very, very clearly. There's more misinformation in the New Age movement than there is alignment. And this is a big problem at the moment, and as we transition through these next couple of years, I think that's really going to be open. And I think it's really important just to express that to people, that, be congruent and feel who you work with, don't go through the advertising, because easily manipulated. And if you've got certain belief systems that are you're going to attach to that, because that's how they do it. That's how propaganda works. So it's, this is an old age. This is a manipulation tool that's been used for a long time. Sorry, go on.
Right. You shouldn't be sold into anything. Don't let anyone give you a sell job. And that's the whole thing. This whole attitude of fake it till you make it. And I'm like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, I keep hearing that.
Faking anything. Okay, if it's not real and it's not coming from a drawn experience, if it's not coming from the heart, then you shouldn't be doing it. And if you have that first inclination and something says no, and then you talk yourself into it, you're not listening to your intuition. You're not listening to your higher self, your true self, because that first instinct, that first gut instinct is the right one.
Yeah.
And if you shouldn't be doing it, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah. Very good advice. Yeah, 100%. Oh, well done. So do you feel you would like to maybe channel something now? Or is there another message you would like to bring forward? You don't have to.
I would love to just give people a beautiful light language blessing. Please. and just move forward with that and just let it go from there.
Wonderful.
Because the way that I channel is really, I channel in conversation. And so I'll know in a conversation. So because I channel slightly differently, let me just go with the language.
Please, absolutely. I just wanted to give you the platform. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So I invite our audience to just close their eyes and just take a deep breath in and release it. And just allow and hold on to my voice. Utera mananiya tataria ar mananiete. Onchera kananani amporea. Aron cherea. Arontea. Aron itika frontara. Ichikarana manani antara. Orearea. Arampari. Ichurana. Arentera. Ah. Mm, mm, ah. Otakramanania takranto tutian mananiate. Achunto kuru. Arunde andea. Arum paraya tampara. Arorea. Arorea. Arorea.
Fantastic. Thank you, Enola. That was great.
You're
I got
welcome.
quite a few images when you were speaking. That was very interesting. Yeah, amazing, amazing, lovely. Thank you. And that was that a native tongue to where you're at, or what? Where's that voice come from? What is that? A certain language?
So the language of light, all of us have the capacity to do the language of light. It's a remembering. It's a remembering of the frequencies that we spoke at before we were birthed into this world.
Yes, yes.
And it is the sacred geometry, the light codes, it's all coming through. And for me, it's pure love. And
Yeah.
so it's like me as Enolia stands aside as it comes through.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just adhere to what it wants to do.
Yeah.
I don't dictate at all.
Yeah.
And then they let me know when they're done. It's just like
exactly.
it's administered, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's really healing through frequency. Again, there's a frequency because everyone who speaks language of light has a different frequency. Some are similar frequencies because I know when I get around other people who speak, I can actually tune into their frequency of how they speak. And then, but it, you know, and I want to caution people because people go, oh, she's just speaking in tongues. No, it is not that.
Yes, but that's what I wanted to ask you.
Intuition, there is a place from the heart that it comes from. We all, if I describe the medicine wheel to you, right? If you look at the horizontal, if my arms are held out and I was just standing straight up and down with my arms held out, that horizontal is our physical, right? It's how we hear, taste, touch, smell. It's our regular senses that we deal with on this plane, right? And then the vertical is like the spiritual place we go, that place where nobody else can go but you. Your connection to spirit, your connection within. Yeah. And where do we cross? We cross at the heart. The gateway is the heart. And so as we do spiritual work and then we come and we're acknowledging what we have to do physically on this plane, we're entering and exiting our heart constantly. You know, we're out of the heart and we're dealing with external things. We're in our heart and we're in the vertical and we're in timelessness. We're in our meditation space. We're in our prayer space. We're in those spaces. And so for me, where that language of light comes is it comes from the vertical. Yeah. Yeah. It comes through the vertical and that connection and that frequency, because the journey of healing, regardless of how many tools you use, is the frequency. Yeah. Is light codes, you know, is that journey of sound. Yeah. And how we receive it. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And yes, it is vertical. And that's where, again, what spirit wants us to be is just in the present moment. You know, and they say you can only receive in the present moment. And that's why it's so important to be present. And it's
And it's even that channeling we got the other day, I don't know if I read it off to you, but they just said, you know, spirits, just stay off your phone for 1 day a week, have it there for emergencies, but just stay off and just commune with nature, and you will start to see how your energy is pulled out and how you're pulled out of the present moment. And I think, yeah, it's a beautiful way. And the vertical is something that I speak about as well. So I totally agree. Very much so.
Excellent, excellent. And you know, it's so funny because when we don't acknowledge the vertical and all we do is acknowledge the horizontal, then what happens is that you make your day so filled with the noise and the busyness of what's all around you that vertical doesn't have the opportunity to connect. That vertical doesn't have an opportunity to be still. And it doesn't have a chance for it to expand and broaden within your heart, within you.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely essential, and how you put it is that we need to commune with nature. We're in our vertical when we commune with nature. We're in our vertical when we find that place of silence.
Silence, yes.
And we just sit with ourselves, or we meditate, or we do yogic practice. We're putting the energy so that vertical can connect, whether it's connecting all the way to Father Spirit and Mother Earth and meeting at the heart, because we're the child, and it's allowing those downloads. That download's coming in the vertical, not coming in the horizontal.
No, exactly. And it's so true. Like, I mean, if you could just sit for 5 minutes in the vertical, you know, sometimes, you know, when I was going through some work and I just feel like all this heaviness around me, and I just sit for 5 minutes and just breathe and go, right, connect to spirit. And they just shift it in seconds. You know, everyone has that power, but you've got to, again, trust your soul. But the healing and the profundity of experience and light language, like you said, and information that can be passed is amazing in the present moment. You know, and this lady I used to work with in Australia, and she was talking about the horizontal and the vertical and her channelings as well. And she wrote horizontal, meaning, so it's all these milestones that we create that we need to go to. And then when we don't reach them, you know, we get depleted, we get depressed. Oh, you know, I've got to pay the mortgage. I should have been this by 40, blah, 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 blah. And that's actually what kills us. And again, this is spirits. The issue is just present moment. And the beauty about everything now, and this is a good thing I think which we should say to everyone, is that you can do everything at home now. You can just be present at home and connecting, and life will shift for you. And that is the gift that we've been given now. We can just be present, and that is okay. And amazing things can happen with the right intention. So you can have the intention there as well.
Absolutely. Because the intention is our thought, and our thought is a form, and that thought is energy. And that thought form and energy, whether we express it verbally or not, still has resonance, and it still takes space.
Absolutely.
You know, and so when we intuit something and we creating a thought, and that's recorded in the waters of our body, Dr. Masaru Emoto's work, that is expressed through our resonance and how we present ourselves, right? Because we're still thinking it. So therefore the energetic around it affects the energetics around us, whether we express it or not, right?
Yeah.
So our auric field, everything, it expresses even as a thought form. You know, you sit there and you're talking to someone, you're in silence, and you look at their face, and their face is the language, and you go, what are you thinking about? You know that they're not present, they're somewhere else, they're dwelling, and it's just like, okay, so you're not expressing it verbally, but it's still there.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just have to acknowledge.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did it when I was creating a 10-week package. One of my slogans was "Thoughts create warts." It's just a good way. I always remember that one.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, hilarious. Anyway, that's good. So, well, look, thank you. Is there any final messages, and how can people reach you? I'll share all your socials, obviously, on the video. But if you've got any final messages.
Sure. I would share with our audience the following. Dream a beautiful dream, or you will be dreamt. Which means that if you don't hold a vision for yourself that allows life to become a pathway to walk to it, then what you will end up doing is you'll be dreamt, which is that you will be fulfilling what everyone perceives you should be doing versus doing what you love.
Yeah. Yeah.
So dream a beautiful dream and don't allow yourself to be dreamt. Don't try to fulfill what others perceive that you should be doing. Hold your own space, stand in your truth, hold your own group, hold your own vision. And so if you want to reach out to me or you want to see my work, I have my website, which is www.enolia.live. Okay. And I also have my YouTube channel. It's under Enolia Energy and also The Infinite Way, because I have a podcast also.
Exactly.
Enolia is not a hard name. You're not going to get thousands of Enolias when you look it up on Facebook, YouTube. Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., etc. So you can look up Enolia Foti and you'll see my picture and you'll recognize me and you can join. So that'd be it.
Thank you so much, Enolia. And it's been wonderful to have you on. And I look forward to again speaking to you in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor, Paul. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too, very much. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.